Aran Susday, Som Swakum, or Lok Srai Bong Pa On Tang Dal Ban Ma Chol Room Knon Kamwiti, Prekni Namuchet Mondol Sexa Khmer. Knyum Chmur George Chigas, How Knyum Kuchi and Nom Knon Kamwiti. Hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another CKS webinar. My name is George Chigas, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar entitled Assessing Social Sciences and Humanities Research Capacity in Cambodia with Dr. 𝐀𝐛𝐬𝐭. Let me just say a couple of things before I introduce Dr. 𝐀𝐛𝐬𝐭. As most people know, this year, CKS is celebrating its 25th anniversary after being established in 1999. And this will be the last webinar of this year, which has been a year of reflecting on the year of the accomplishments of the last 25 years and looking forward to the strategies and programs for taking CKS to the next level over the next 25 years. So it's very appropriate that we're ending this year with this webinar on assessing research capacity in Cambodia, because as most people know, CKS is a research center based in Siem Reap with a satellite office in Phnom Penh. And the mission of CKS is to promote research and scholarship in the social sciences and humanities in Cambodia and the Mekong River region through fellowships and grants and various other programs designed to promote research and scholarly exchange. I think it's worthy to note that 25 years ago, when CKS first started in 1999, it was also a bit of a watershed year for Cambodia as a whole. It was the year that Cambodia finally achieved the beginning of what would be a lasting peace. The last remnants of the Khmer Rouge defected to the Cambodian government, ending what would be 30 years of civil war and genocide in the country. From then, Cambodia underwent and is still undergoing a very aggressive policy and programs to develop the country, develop its infrastructure, and develops human capacity in all realms. In that year, 1999, Cambodia was entered the ASEAN Association of Southeast Asian States. And a few years later, I believe 2003, Cambodia entered the World Trade Organization, giving it access to greater markets for its textile industries and other products. So since 2000, Cambodia has been growing economically, has been integrating itself into the global political and economic and cultural systems. And I think it's important to note that it hasn't been that long a time, 25 years since then, that this is all happening, and starting from a very modest, to say the least, starting point. It's only been 2 generations, really, since 1999. The generation born in the 1980s, and then the following generation born here in the early 2000s. So I think this is important to keep in mind as we consider the assessment of Cambodia's research capacities now, today in 2024, the end of 2024, and looking forward to the next 25 years. So I look forward to hearing Dr. 𝐀𝐻𝐬𝐿's presentation, discussing the findings of his assessment, which he conducted with a team of researchers. And following the presentation, taking questions and answers from the audience. So let me introduce Dr. 𝐀𝐻𝐬𝐿. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Royal University of Phnom Penh. He graduated in Social and Behavioral Sciences from the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. He was previously chief of the World Bank's Innovative and Development Grants under its 𝐀𝐬𝐭 program. He's been a research fellow and a visiting scholar at really too many countries to name in the time that we have. His reputation is widespread and well-respected. And we're very fortunate to have him here today to present his findings of the project that was conducted earlier this year, I believe in May and June and July. So without further ado, as we say, let me introduce Dr. Lien Ung. Welcome, Dr. Ung.
Yeah, ជំរាបសួរ Professor George អរគុណចំពោះការណែនាំហើយ thank you very much for the introduction ហើយជំរាបសួរអ្នកចូលរួមទាំងអស់នៅក្នុង webinar នេះហើយនឹងតាម Facebook ខ្ញុំត្រូវបានណែនាំថាទៅចែកគ្នាជាភាសាអង់គ្លេសនៅក្នុងវគ្គនេះអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំសូមត្រឡប់ទៅកាន់ភាសាអង់គ្លេសវិញនេះ It's very good morning and thank you very much for joining this webinar, the last one for the CKS this year and the last one, but the reflection on all what CK has been doing for the last 25 years, as Professor George has mentioned. So without further ado, let me sharing my PowerPoint first before going through the finding of our research report. And with me here, I have all my team with me in doing this report. We have Mr. Horsety, we have Mrs. Ratanatida, and also Mrs. 𝐀𝐛𝐬𝐭𝐫𝐚, which is my team doing this assessment. Let me do this. So I'm trying to present very shortly on the finding of what we've been doing since May, June, and July this year. But what I'm expected is, I think more discussion is much more appreciated than this finding. To be frank, the finding that we found out, although there are some points in terms of the development of the research capacities amongst Cambodian researchers, as mentioned by Professor George, that we are in and undergoing transformation in terms of higher education, might remain substantially the same, not changing much if you look at 25 years ago or something. So let me trying to invite more discussion so that we can see not only the research funding here, but how to interact and moving forward in terms of collaboration and working together to improve research capacities in Cambodia. I think that the rationale for this assessment have two. Actually, we can see that research performance in Cambodia in general is low comparing to the ASEAN or comparing to the globally. But in fact, if you compare within the Cambodian, we see much of the improvement in the last 25 years or so. But in terms of regional and global, Cambodian research performance overall is very low, and especially in social sciences and humanities. For those who are familiar with the Cambodian scholarship might be aware that most of the social sciences and humanities publication, either in terms of the journal articles or in terms of the book, mostly published by foreign scholars or Cambodian diasporas. Local research and local scholars have very limited capabilities in doing this kind of stuff. So this is one of the rationale that we're trying to access research capabilities among Cambodian researchers and also among Cambodian Research Institute. We also seeing the shift actually since the turn to the millennia, the shift of focus from the traditional education of content-based, which focus on social science and humanity, as a way to reconstruct the country after the post-conflicts toward more STEM-oriented program. And this is not only the Cambodian case. I think this might be influenced by the global trend of believing that the deepening of sciences and technologies will bring social progress as what they believe. Within these two rationale, the assessment is carrying out to try to see the capacities of social sciences and humanity research in Cambodia. So with the two objectives that we explore is trying to assess the research skill among Cambodian researchers, how far they are confident in the skill of doing research. The second objective is trying to access the institutional capability to support research, both within the university setting and within the non-university setting. We're using the term capability rather than capacity alone because we believe that in order to improve research performance, we not need only capacity, but we need the abilities of the institution to support researcher. Funding alone might not be enough. Research skill alone not be enough. It depends on the ecosystem to support researcher to perform their research. And this is what we use to we use the term capabilities instead of capacity. Within this assessment, we ask two main questions. How do Cambodian researchers in the field of social sciences and humanity perceive their level of research skill? And we will elaborate what are the research skill is in this assessment. The second way asking what is the degree of the institutional capability to support research in social sciences and humanities in Cambodia. For the methodologies, we're using a mixed method approach. We're using the data review by reviewing the social sciences and humanity performance in Cambodia. We're using the survey questionnaires sent out to the researcher in order to have the self-assessment of their own research skill. The last one, we're using semi-structured interview in order to assess the institutional capabilities of research institute, whether it's universities or non-university, to support research. For the desk review, we're trying to get insight into the Cambodian research performance using the survey of the publication available in Google Scholar and other search engine, but we use mostly in the English language literatures. So this is our limitations that access the research performance in Cambodia at this stage. We limited ourselves to the English languages and also limit ourselves to the international quality research standard. During these limitations, actually also can evaluate ourselves in terms of comparative advantage, whether the Cambodian researcher at the regional and global level where we are at the moment. So we are not also inward looking, but we are outward looking. So all those, the method that we are using have a limitation in access the research performance within Cambodia, but we also can inform us about where we are at the regional and the global positions. For the survey assessment, we sent out to three different groups. One is the research institute, we call it Future Forums and Cambodian Development Resource Institute, where they have in-house researcher there. So we would like to see what the researcher within this institution view themselves in terms of the research skill. Also, I would like to inform you that since 2002, OUPP are implementing the capacity improvement projects. And these capacity improvement projects aim to train early career researchers and a doctoral student in terms of the subject matter is social sciences and humanity. So we trained it for like 3 years, and we have over hundreds of people joining our workshop. And then we send out this survey to these people in order to assess the skill. This can also comparing the intervention where they participate in the training and which level they improving in terms of their research skill. The third one we send out to a very public Telegram group because Cambodian Telegram group is very popular. They're using it as almost quite officially send out information, exchange document over the telegrams out. So we send out to this public group called Research Training, which have actually more than 1,000 of members who are participating in this group, and most of them identify themselves as earlier and middle and even late researchers. For the questionnaire, we structure into 4 different aspects: personal information, research experiences, self-evaluated research skill, which we're going to elaborate further in detail, and their perceptions of research performance in Cambodian, especially in the field of social sciences and humanities. Within the research skill, we are using the framework combining from a different research framework, putting into the context of Cambodian, where we put the English as most important because doing research without the English proficiency will do nothing at the moment because most of the literatures are in English languages or other foreign language. But since the English is the main language communication, we're using English as a main foreign language for doing research. Although would like to inform that academic publication in local languages, which is Khmer, is very limited at the moment. That is why we using combining English ability as another research skill too within the Cambodian context to contextualizing the research skill beyond the Western framework. So within that, we use searching skill, planning and organization skill, data collection skill, data analysis skill, report and communication skill. And we're rating all of these 6 skills into the a scale of from very poor to the expert. For the semi-structured interview, we focus on 3 main aspects of the institution, either as a universities or a research institute. We are assessing their research funding, we are assessing their capacity development and their research infrastructure. By capacity development, we mean what kind of training that they are provided to the researcher or to their staff in terms of the research skill. Interview we were conducted both in Khmer and English according to the preference of the interview, and we translated it into English and put into this research report, which is actually available on the CKS website. We interview 7 male and 2 female from 6 university and 3 research institute. They are the name of the institute that we are interviewing, and I'm not going to detail on this name of the institution. So let me bring you to the finding of this assessment. I'm also going quite brief in terms of the finding. As I said, there's not much new. If those are familiar within the Cambodian context, we are still remain substantially the same. As I mentioned earlier, Cambodian research performance is very low in terms of the document publication available. Look at this graph that we combined from the Scapers in May 2022. So the top 5 subject actually for Cambodia is not social sciences is there, but it's not really big comparing to agriculture, environmental science, medicine, biological science, or earth study, for example. So that is the big focus. And look at the document within the Cambodian. So we are slightly over Brunei and Laos and Myanmar, but the rest of the big ASEAN very outperform Cambodian in terms of the number of publications. Part of the underlying cause so far, as a lot of people are focusing, is the low number of researchers within the Cambodian. If you look at Cambodian researcher, is very low comparing to the rest of the region. So far, if we do the literature review on the challenges faced by the researchers and underlying causes of low performance of research in Cambodia, we can categorize into the funding and financial issue. As I mentioned earlier, Cambodians spend very low on research and developments. For university, which is the main actor in terms of the pure or academic research, their funding is very limited. Since they don't have much from the government, they should have the other source of income for doing research, but actually their main income actually coming from the tuition fee, and the tuition fee is very low, so they was not able to channel their incomes into the research, mostly for the operational and teaching base. And this is also the nature of the Cambodian university, is focused more on teaching oriented rather than research oriented. Within the sub category of financial issue, we can see that the lack of incentive for researcher. By now, we don't have like how much we're going to pay for researcher locally. Cambodian, I should mention that we are still paid by teaching hour. Most of the university paid their faculty member by teaching hour, and this actually increase the intention to maximizing the teaching hour for the living and not pay much attention to the research. And also the support from the university, because of the shortage of funding, they wasn't able to subscribe into the peer-reviewed journal. They don't have budget to support the travel costs for doing the fieldwork or buying the software for the data analysis. In terms of the research competency, the issue facing is the research skill is very limited or low, and the lack of management skill in terms of managing the research grant. But what we actually seeing is that we can call it lack of qualified or committed researcher, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a capable researcher. But mostly what we mean by the committed is that they are more, I don't want to say pull out of the research arena into the other job, because the other job is actually paid more than the researcher. So this is the issue that we are facing at the moment. And again, as I said, since we don't have the category to promote or recognize the researcher, so mostly it's going back to teaching or going to do the other work, as I mentioned earlier. For the external factor, if you look at the research performance so far in Cambodian, since we are the post-conflict country, so most of the work will focus on the reconstruction and development in terms of improving either infrastructures or services. And then within this, the budget that coming from development work, not moving toward research, but moving toward only in terms of what I call it assessment report. And in this form, the assessment report paid a very high salaries to the consultant. And that is why I said earlier, most of the competent researchers are moving into this area of job as consultants. So informative consultant, they do baseline assessment, monitoring and evaluation of the research projects commissioned by a specific project, mostly sponsored by the donor from outside. And again, as I said, a lot of researchers are moving to high paid within the international organization or a mission of the foreign government. If they stay within the research, mostly they're going to collaborate with the researcher from outside. Mostly they will work as research assistant and not as a principal investigator in most of the projects. And the impacts of this is that we don't sustain one particular researcher into the field. So they are sitting around. That is why whatever they hunting and they got the money. And this is where they mostly focus on the, as I said earlier, the development work is more focused rather than on traditional social sciences, humanities, such as sociology, histories, or literature, for example, which is actually not being commissioned much by the donor, which focus more on the development oriented. I'm not going to talk much of the issue of the soundness of research and validity of research that are being carried out by the development work or carried out by the foreign researcher, and that need to be further discussion. But I just would like to highlight that for a country to grow, we are not only need development kind of assessment or research, but we actually need to understand Cambodian culture and society properly in order to move Cambodia in terms of the inclusive and sustainable development. That is why so far some of the research that has been carried out was not able to translate or influence the social and cultural policies of the government. Now, beyond the desk review, let us look at the respondent answer to the to our survey questionnaires. So in total, when we sent out for like 2 weeks, because this assessment is very short term, so we was not able to follow up or prolongs the time for getting a response from the participant. So we limit within the 2 weeks. So after the 2 weeks, I sent out the surveys, we received like over 100 respondents, which is about 70% male and 30% female. And out of those 104, 76% consider themselves a researcher. In terms of the research skill, for searching skill, we divide it into 4 sub research skill. A searching skill, for example, the ability to use and select appropriate search tool, both online and offline, the ability to filter key word for searching, the ability to evaluate the reliabilities and usability of the collected information that they search for. They search. The ability to form hypotheses along the way while they actually reading the literatures where they are searching, and basically most of respondents answering they have the basics skill in this searching skill. There's only a few respondents rated themselves as expert. In terms of planning and organization skill, we also divide it into 4 sub-skills, which is general knowledge, research method and design, the ability to determine the right design for the research, whether that's quantitative, qualitative, or mix, or using what kind of tool that they are doing. the ability to manage the time and develop personal work plan, the ability to identify the personal challenges and come up with a solution in terms of executing the research projects. Again, mostly about half of the participant respond that they have the basic skill. In terms of data collection skill, we divide it into 4 sub-skill: ability to utilize existing academic literatures, ability to store and manage collected literature for easy access, which is some sort of personal habit or whatever. The ability to create new data relevant or needed for the research, ability to demonstrate self-reflections on the data being collected. And again, the respondent is on the basic skill. In terms of data analysis, the same pattern is observed, so I'm not going to do further reading on this to save time. As I said, I would prefer the time to interact, appreciate the interactions much better. As I mentioned earlier, I think this is not really new to most of the people who are familiar within the research environments in Cambodia. The same for reporting and communications. The pattern remains substantially the same, most of them answering the basic skill. What is interesting is that English, comparing to the 1990, I think for those who have been in Cambodia back in the 1990, we struggle to find people who have proficiencies in English to work with, especially where the influx of international organization coming to Cambodia by that time. But by now, most of the people have the English proficiencies. I think Cambodia require outstanding in terms of improving the English languages among the population. Now you go into provinces, there might be some people speak English too. In that, we can see that about half of the respondent answering they have the English language skill. But for me, this one need to be interpreted carefully. For English general communications, it might be okay. And for the general development research related work like assessment, evaluation, monitoring might be okay. But in terms of the academic English, I just would like to highlight that this survey need to be interpreted carefully. In our workshop, one of our workshops, we're working with the PhD student from a different part of Cambodia. And we introduced the word decolonization. And majority of them said that this is my first time to know this word. So that means in terms of the academic English into the high intellectual abstract vocabularies, I think we still need a lot of training on this. For institutional capability to support research, we're going to look into 3 main sub-themes: financing research and researcher, capacity development, and research infrastructures. While financial support for research endowment was improved, research performance remained limited due to the shortage of manpower, lack of clear career paths, and incentive for researchers. As I said, recently, Cambodian government are actually trying to allocate funding for research. But one of the interesting points is that there's no category salary for researcher. I don't know how much we are paid. And this is why we struggle to actually finding people to actually using this research funding. We have funding sometimes, but we don't have people to do the research. For this, as I mentioned earlier, Cambodian higher education institution, mostly university, and this context is teaching oriented. and they prepare the student to navigate with the labor market and not focus on this research much. In the last few years, the Ministry of Education trying to even require a graduate program to graduate with the thesis writing before you actually can take just a coursework for graduations. So we acknowledge this, and they're trying to improve research culture within the postgraduate training in Cambodia. As I said, funding, although it increase in terms of providing to the university for doing research, but the funding remains substantially low comparing to the other countries in the region. Some of the issues that have been highlighted during our research is that one researcher, as I said, sometimes they do everything all in one. They do budgeting, they do administrative work, they do research. So this is the issue is that sometimes it researcher is exhausted all of this stuff with low paid and doing a lot of things, and this is where we wasn't able to recruit much of the researchers, or what we call it earlier, with lack of committed researcher. Doesn't mean that all researchers are not willing to do the research, but the problem is that the ecosystem to support researcher with institution remains substantially absent. For the research institute, they depend on the external support of funding, mainly from the Western donor. The new donor are not paying much attention on the research yet. Even the Japanese or Korea, to say nothing about China, much of the budget is more on the human capital formation rather than focus on research. We observe that they're increasing funding, according to the respondent, that opportunity for funding from outside or channeling to the Cambodian is increasing. But also we faces the high competition, because as I said, a lot of human development program, capacity building program are very increasing. So we have a lot of people who set up the research institute too within the Cambodian. So there's a lot of competition among them to access to the funding. Regarding the funding availability, there are no discrimination. So researchers from every background, from regardless of genders or ethnicities or whatever disabilities, they can access the funding. So in that one, Cambodian on that stage. What is interesting differences between the researcher based within the research institute and the researcher within the university setting is that there's a clear division of works and concentration. The researcher from the research institute, they mostly focus on the research work and not much on the administrative or finance, while the researcher within the university setting, they need to do all in one. For the capacity development within the institution, we see an increase of people access to the research training program within the universities. But this needs to be interpreted carefully between the separate research capacity development program and the course. One particular course is on research methodology, for example. Most of the institutions will provide like one-stop courses on research methodology, and sometimes they will count it as a capacity development program, and this need to be clearly observed within this context. there are also different approaches in terms of how the institution are carrying out the capacity development program. In the research institute, they will integrate the capacity development program into their research projects, while some other institutions will separate them as different training for their researcher, not included into the execution of the research projects. In terms of infrastructures, the constraints that we fall is the access to the online and peer-reviewed journal and publication, because that's very expensive one. And we can see that most of the researcher will rely on their host institute libraries, and going out to the other library is still remains substantially low. However, there are few big library that they mentioned here while they are doing research, like the Hun Sen Library at OGPP, the National Library of Cambodia, the Senate Library, American Corner Cambodia, Buddhist Institute Library, National Archive Cambodian, Wapana Center, these becomes libraries and the Center for Khmer Study to a lesser extent. And this need to be carefully carefully disseminate more information in terms of outreach, especially for CKS. Like for the workshop that we conducted at OGPP, most of the participants even don't know where the existence of the CKS. So CKS need to be reached out to the other institution for a more well aware of their existence of the best libraries in Cambodia in terms of social sciences and humanities. I think JSTOR is what's commonly used platform by the Cambodian researcher, but as I said, most institutions are not able to subscribe to this journal, so they mostly rely on their friend who study abroad to access to the articles where they need it. For the recommendation, this is a few recommendations that we provide related to each of the research skill that we mentioned earlier. So in terms of searching skill, we recommend that training on how to evaluate the reliabilities of the information or literatures and forming the research hypothesis to help them in the earlier stage of the research process. This is very important because sometimes here we overflux of information, but the critical evaluations of the sources that they get is still put into the question mark, especially in the context where we do not have a professional association to actually orient them to a particular set of updated literatures on a specific subject matter. The second one related to the searching skill is the encouragement of researcher to use appropriate key term to filter the searching skill. For example, if you use just male and female to access to literature, it's not, we're missing the other part of the gender. So probably we need to train them of the key important term that are being filtered within the academic setting. In terms of planning and organizational skill, training should be provided on the research project management, interpersonal communication skill, and critical thinking, as well as practical problem solving where they first when they executed their research projects. Training also should provide it in the area of analytical frameworks like gender analysis framework or intersectional analysis need also to be focused, so that when they are planning and organizing their research projects, they have been having a more broader perspective in this area. For data collections, we should focus on inclusive sampling to avoid bias of the data that we are collected. Also, again, evaluating the existing academic literature that help them to form the conceptual and theoretical framework to guide their data collection is very important too. Otherwise, it's not relevant enough for them to get the data appropriate for their research projects. For the data analysis, we need to provide them with a lane, a specific lane in terms of not only in terms of the discipline best, but also in terms of the wider issue of awareness, like gender issue, indigenous and ethnic issue, or disabilities issue that they're going to look into. What is important in data analysis and what I myself also observe is that in Cambodian, there's very limited debate on the theory, especially the theoretical framework that can inform and discuss the data that they have within the Cambodian context. Most of the social theories and theory in humanities in Cambodian are actually influenced by the Western lens. So probably this need to be interpreted carefully, where they are training in terms of the analysis. They should be encouraged to actually, I'm not saying that the Western theory is absolutely nonsense to the Cambodian context, but actually we need to be aware and let them see that this is the Western lens to look into Cambodian context. This is an Oriental lens to look into Cambodian, and what is the traditional lens of Cambodian cultures and society where they embedded in this research, how this theory interact and how they play within the interpretation of the data is really important, rather than just gearing toward one particular kind of concept or theory that they used to train so far. In terms of the report and communications, selecting where to publish, how to communicate is very important, especially the communication of the research finding into the public audience. And this needs to be carefully trained, because the language that they use in the academic setting will be different from the language that you provided into the public audience. And I myself also acknowledge that sometimes I need to be trained in this area too. What is important thing is that since this focus is on international publication, I think training Cambodian researcher into the top journal to make them visible into the top academic circle is very important. So we need to support them in terms of how to shape and bring their research finding into the top journal in the field. This is important. Again, as I said, for the foreign languages, we need to train them in the areas of the academic English for doing research in social sciences and humanities. In terms of the institutional capacity to support research, we recommend 7 bullet points in order to sustain and the research performance in Cambodian. Endowment fund should be established. Otherwise, relies on one-stop funding for doing research is not helpful for promoting research cultures in Cambodia. The second one, we propose that all graduate program in Cambodia need to focus on thesis writing, not just a coursework. And also within the university, especially setting a career path for researcher should be established. Incentivizing research in terms of appropriate salary for a living need to be established, and also the recognition program for researcher need to be established. Also, in terms of the capacity building program, it need to be regularly introduced within the institution. Especially here, the point number 6, you see here, clear structures and job descriptions need to be established. As I said, it's not much a problem within the research institute, but within the university, researchers are burdened on everything. So this need to be clearly established, and then the ecosystem to support researcher need to be established so that the researcher can be can spend their time on doing research rather than doing on administrative or financial issue. The last one is modernizing research infrastructure to support research, especially in terms of the a variety of sources at the library is important. And the I think this one related to how we promote our research resources that available for researchers like CKS. I think need to be actively going around university, and also in terms of interlibrary loan, where our university are very poor in terms of budgeting or allocating budget to buy the resources. I think this is one where we can support each other in terms of establishing the interlibraries loan, so that everyone can access to the resources appropriate for their doing research. I think this is all from me, and សូមអរគុណចំពោះការយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ស្ដាប់កន្លងមកបាទសូមអរគុណបាទ Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Un. There's a lot to discuss here and to peel back some of the layers that you bring up. Before I start with some of my questions that I have, I want to invite all of our attendees to enter any questions you might have into the Q&A box. Any questions at all that you might have, that you might think of, that are of interest to you, please enter those questions into the Q&A box. To begin, let me just get your perspective on some ideas that came to mind for me as I was listening to your very nice presentation. So thank you very much for that. The first thing that came to mind for me is the measuring capacity, current capacity in Cambodia now for doing research. I noticed that the emphasis may be, and I think this is not unusual, not only in academics and in research, but in general, to compare with contemporaries, with peers in other ASEAN countries or internationally. And in some ways, I think this is really an injustice, an unfair way of trying to measure capacity. Because if we do direct comparisons one-to-one between, let's say, the United States, Cambodia and Malaysia, for example, or Cambodia and the United States, one-to-one, obviously there's going to be a huge disparity, just given the starting points. We mentioned that at the beginning, that if you look, where was Cambodia in 1979? Certainly zero, right? And then we look at 1999, and we see slight but very marginal improvement, because between 79 and 99, there was still civil war going on. There was still just basic reconstruction happening. And really most of the change that's happened in all realms, all sectors, has really begun around the year 2000, right? Would you agree with that? So if we look instead a direct one-to-one comparison, and we looked at the rate of change. So if we look at Cambodia's rate of change from 2000 to 2024, I wonder what we would see. And if we extrapolated that rate of change going forward 25 years, where would the difference be between Cambodia and its peers? In other words, if we compare one-to-one at the year 2000, there's going to be a huge disparity, right, between Cambodia and any of its peers, certainly globally and regionally. But if we look at 25 years later, that difference is, I imagine, I don't have the hard data, has gone down substantially. So in other words, the difference between Cambodia and Thailand or Cambodia and Malaysia has decreased in comparison to where it was in 2000. Because Cambodia's rate of change is presumably, I would guess intuitively, to be much faster, much higher. The number of PhDs being created each year comparatively per capita is increasing at a greater rate in Cambodia than it is in Thailand or Malaysia, compared to where it was the previous year. So if we extrapolate on that idea, that rate of change in Cambodia is happening at a much faster rate than its peers, where would we be in 25 years from now? In other words, if the difference was, 100% 25 years ago, and it's, let's say, 50% today, or it's more, where will it be in 25 years from now? Will it be at 10%, or would it be on equal par, perhaps? Who knows? That's my first point, is to get your feedback on that idea that the rate of change in Cambodia seems to be increasing exponentially, which is probably a greater rate of change than the Cambodian peers.
Yeah, then Professor, I think your observation is on the right point. So I also acknowledge in my presentation that inward looking, we are progressing very much, to be sure. Sure. What I mean by outward looking, and in this case, I focus more on social sciences and humanities alone. I'm not talking on a much broader capacity building program. In terms of a PhD holder, yeah, for sure, we're improving a lot. In terms of higher education institution established, especially since 2005, we are now almost having universities at every corner of Cambodia, every province have a university. In terms of that, we have no questions. But the question here is you zoom in into a particular discipline. By now, can you identify who are Cambodian sociologists? By now, you can identify who's Cambodian historian. By now, can you point out one particular who's Cambodian philosopher? If you look at into those area, and this is where we zoom into focus, and where the society as a whole really depend on the broad those kind. Without question, no countries of the post-conflict are able to recover and reconstruct and progress, as in the case of Cambodia for the last 25 years. On every indicator of mainstream development, Cambodian performance very great. Even with the mega projects that we have been out so far, and now we have more than 20 mega projects, physical infrastructure development in Cambodia. It's no doubt. No one will believe that Phnom Penh will come at this stage after roughly 50 years or so. We can almost on that path, we are moving very great. But here, the focus that I would like to compare into the region or least and globally is the performance in terms of the social science and research skill. And this is where we need to focus more on that. And we should compare that, look at the numbers of even within the translation project of the key text from the outside. Vietnam are doing very great in terms of translation of the knowledge. And Cambodian researcher was able to do this. Of course, the translation can be counted as part of the research too, in order to do that. And this is where the knowledge is spread across Cambodian. And otherwise, this knowledge is being settled down. And in this stage, we can observe that in the late 1990s, much of the focus at the university level is more on social sciences and humanity too. That is why it comes CKS at by that time that, okay, in order to reconstruct Cambodian, we need social science and humanity too. But at the moment, this belief seems to be lag behind. The belief that progressing STEM and technologies is actually what the key element to advance Cambodian society. Yes, for sure. And also in terms of social sciences, humanities, most of the Western theory are being influenced how Cambodian society should go. And this is where we need to step back a bit, whether we would like to go into that direction or we actually having our own social theory and humanity theory in that, how to inform behaviors among our next generation. As you might be questioned rightly, what are we in the next 25 years? Are we looking more west? Or are we actually looking more Cambodia? I really don't know which direction is that. But for me, I just see that one predominant way of seeing society being dominated within the landscape of Cambodian research at the moment. So this is where we are. I didn't question the progress so far, as I said, but we need more more diverse and multiple knowledge on society and humanities, especially at this time where much of the belief in the globalization is fading due to the geopolitics of war. For example, COVID is coming in that everyone need to turn off or close societies of their own country in order to see what they can respond to this pandemic, for example. And this require a particular way of doing things. It's not a global one theory. This is what I think we need to step back and reflect on this issue.
Thank you. Those are great points. And before we get to some of the Q&A, we do have a few questions up. Let me follow that up and try to follow up your points. The disparity between research in the humanities and social sciences compared to the hard sciences, compared to the STEM research. As you've talked about, this is a global trend, right? Humanities and social sciences is taking a back seat everywhere to STEM science. The question, and not only Cambodia, but everywhere, I think. This brings up a point that you brought up earlier that I think I read in your report, in that in doing so, not only Cambodia, but everywhere, does that at great peril, does that at great risk. Because if we only look at the hard sciences, STEM, when we're looking at a problem, whether it's poverty, health, environment, climate, etc., and we ignore the social sciences dimension of those problems, we do not address those complex issues completely, comprehensively.
Mm-hmm.
And the solutions that are one-dimensional or unidimensional or that lack a multidisciplinary perspective, those solutions will be lacking. I think that's something that you mentioned in your report, and I totally agree with. So hopefully, and this is a question that I will raise, and I think it addresses what you also said, that this will become apparent to the governments and the private sector that are seeking the solutions to these complex problems to be more inclusive of the social sciences and humanity as they try to formulate solutions. Hopefully, if that is true, then we might see more emphasis on the humanities and social sciences going forward, and not just such a strong focus on STEM, on the hard sciences. Any thoughts about that?
For me on that point, for my observation within, I think within a broad perspective, and as well also in Cambodian as a latecomer into this game after the post-conflict, we are focused too much on existential threat. Uh, Existential insecurity is what at the bottom of our heart of intervention, because we are facing genocide, we are facing hunger, we're facing everything. So every policies that we are going to introduce, so also on the global level, when they move a little bit forward, but for me as a using the term is that they want to be existential comfortabilities. The question of ontology is absent at this stage. So either you're talking about on the level of survival, life, you're talking on the quality of life, which is facilitated by the advancement of science and technologies. But you're never talking about the level of the meaning of life, on the social ontology, the interaction between all the human in society. So this also influenced by the individualistic advancement of what I might call it from the Western concept of the ego or Eurocentrisms that particularly this one. So mine is that trying to actually see it from this, and we need to do that the revisions or revisit of social science and humanity need to have the multiple sources. And looking into this, Cambodian once used to be the uncle's golden age. And by that time, I probably see that we might have our own social science theories or own humanities theory by that time, and whether we can dig that down and bring it up, that we have an Angkorian way, if you would like to use that terminology, is that one way, the Angkor Empire, we must be having Angkorian way of organizing ourselves and organizing our society, whether we can dig down that and bring it into the contemporary debate. Into, we are not denying that all the existing theory is actually nonsense, as I said, but the interaction between the two need to be coming up. Otherwise, you have just imported to one particular way of seeing society. So this is what I think we need to rethink seriously enough in order to promote social sciences and humanity in Cambodia.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a great point, I think. And just to summarize that point, if I have it correct, it's that because of Cambodia's recent history of war and genocide, there's an inherent bias. And I think this is what you were saying, that there's an there's a feeling of existential threat. And the inherent bias leads to solutions that try to protect the sense of protecting ourselves against that threat, that existential threat, which may then bias governments and other private sectors from moving away, certainly not moving towards the humanities and social sciences, but the hard sciences, because that's perceived as the greater protection from these existential threats. I think that's an amazingly important point. Thank you for bringing that up. So let me go to the questions here in the time that we have left. The first one is from Mr. Thierra Thun. As we know, recently published an amazing book on Cambodia's intellectual history. And I'll read the question. This is Thierra from Hong Kong. Thank you, Dr. Ong Leung, for sharing your research findings with us. Cambodia is known for having a significant number of PhD holders, yet many PhD programs lack the necessary resources to offer high-quality training to their students. Do these issues impact the advancement of research in science, in social sciences and humanities research in Cambodia? I think you've answered that already, but yes, certainly they do, but please respond.
Yeah, we need to acknowledge, and that is the way that Tura, I think, with his publication and observation on that is the point. That's why I thought we might probably invite a conversation and question much better. The problem is okay, this is the situation. how are we going to deal with it? I think this is must go beyond the observation of this, the fact that Cambodian lack resources to do this stuff. And if you look at into for those who are close enough to be the examiner or the readers of the publication or the dissertation of the PhD in Cambodian, you can see what quality we are. For me, in this area, I would like to say that in order to respond to what I mentioned earlier, existential threat, we are not required much of the PhD in social sciences and humanities. Philosopher will produce nothing. And then how can you deal with the existential threat of survival? By this, I mean that what we are doing is probably rise on the level of promoting STEM education in order to respond to this. On that level is right. Having more on the PhDs on social science and humanity for what and for whom need to be a question mark. If these PhD level are designed and established just in line with the core heart of social sciences, of sciences and technology, I think remain the same still. And this is what I observe in Cambodia, even the word education. If you look at education in Cambodian program at the graduate level, we have, they call it using very fancy name. I don't know whether I translated it rightly or not. They call it Vichia of Room. So if you look at the science of education, so that means even in the program that they design is gearing toward all this science and management style of education, but does not have a substantially the purpose of education mainstream enough into the program. So in this sense, I don't know whether, as I said, answering to that question, I accept all the observation without answering or clarification, but we need to review beyond the contemporary or current practices of the doctoral program. How can we channel funding into this? For me, the other big question is that how can we pool for those who we believe that the capable faculty member in the field of social sciences and humanity field within the Cambodian higher education institution or the training program that we have. And this is the big issue where we have, and this must be a circle of what I might call it, the circle of poor program. So you have the PhD program, which is not serious enough, and then you produce the PhD graduate who come back to the faculty members, and then all of this circle. And where we are going to break this circle, if you would like to actually having a very good program in social science humanities, the resources for the budgeting, I think for the hard resources, it's very easy to get, but for the people within this field to run the program is hard. If you would like to improve that, you need people who working within this program strong enough to attract the resources or manage resources properly to achieve the promotion of social sciences and humanity in a proper sense, right? And then this is what I think we need to reflect as a mission of an educated person within the Cambodian project. I call it within the Cambodian project, as I said, at least in the region, there might be more people, at least in comparing to Thailand, for example, they have more their own social scientists and their own humanists. Even look at the what we might say it at the center of Buddhist learning. Thailand might be preferring than Cambodia, which is one, Cambodia used to be the center of higher learning in terms of Buddhist learning before the officially nation state of Thailand emerged. But now we are disappearing, right? So by this time, what I mean is how, and I have no absolute answer to that one, but I just invited everyone who are actually faithful to this promotion of social science and humanity in Cambodian to come together and answer this question: how are we going to promote social sciences and humanity in Cambodia, and to what direction, and who going to lead these directions? Look at, even asking myself, people like my age. I'm a little not really young, but if Cambodians are more developed smoothly, as you said, without strategies, without genocide, I'm not here today. I'm still a young guy. I need a mentorship. But look at the Cambodian mentor. If you point out people over 60, over 70 have a proper training in social science humanity, maybe very, very small circle. And then this need to be taken into account, this disaster that brought by the Khmer Rouge, who are actually killing the intellectual development project in Cambodia. But by now, we need to work together. I don't know whether we need a classical, and by mean classical, I mean whether we actually need a classical anthropologist, for example, classical historian, or we need a more contemporary history or contemporary anthropology, for example, to deal with this kind of tradition. Or we still need both. I don't know. This is a big issue uh, that we would like to address. That is why one of our recommendation is that without endowment fund for social science humanity, we will not get a proper programs to train social scientists and humanities in Cambodia. I don't know whether I answered it to us, but I accept the fact that your observation is actually right. We don't have a rigorous program. But last point is that at OGPP, we're trying our hard to rebuild this tradition. So currently we're running the doctoral in Khmer study. Those are very early stage and struggle to stand up. But we're trying to see how it goes in the next couple of years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Un. Let me try to get to a couple more questions before our time is up. This question from Emily T. Do you think humanities research conducted by diaspora Cambodian communities in America, Australia, Canada, France, etc., influence, help, and shape the state of research assessment capacity in Cambodia today? So is there an interaction between the diaspora and Cambodian researchers?
On this level, I'm probably using all, not as a generalization, but as per my personal interaction only. And I would like to acknowledge that Cambodian diaspora have a very great position and knowledge and privilege to do research comparing to Cambodian local scholar, as I mentioned earlier. They are situated in a well-established university, for example. They're doing this. My question is back to my desk reviews in the report, is about the soundness and the validities of their research. It doesn't mean that they are not good or they are wrong, but the problem is that whether the Western learn and the belief in the scientific progress as they used to went through the Western education, really look into the Cambodian society neutrally or fairly enough to see Cambodia. If you look at the ways that we're doing this, okay, in terms of logical flow of the argument is there, but in terms of sensitivity to the context, to what happened on the ground, we need to do furthermore. And this is why in Cambodian, since there's a lack of rigorous training program to our researcher, people, when they read, not only for the diaspora, but when they read other research finding, they believe it as the Bible. There's no question mark. And this kind of critical culture within the Cambodian training program need to be reestablished. I think Professor George and our audience here might probably aware, even within those Western context or other country, all the scholars might have a different view, right, on a certain aspect, on a certain interpretation of what's happening, even within the Cambodian, right? But some of the Cambodian students and researchers wasn't able to discuss those findings seriously enough to find whether that appropriate or not, or that is really reflect into Cambodian realities enough. And then this is why, as I said earlier, much of the finding so far was not able to inform appropriate policies intervention in Cambodia. That is why we have Cambodian Humanities today for the last 40 years. By that mean, I don't, as again, I said, in terms of physical development, we are moving very fast. But in terms of other values, traditional value, for example, is declining. Look at two aspects. Everyone might be said that, oh, Cambodian societies, moral values are declining, to see expressing in some sort of irresponsible of certain one particular or two particular person that, okay, driving with a drunken drinking a lot or driving and hitting people die or accident, for example. All of this like okay, moral declining, personal responsibility is declining, for example. In terms of classical languages, for example, among young kids now, they don't read and write Khmer properly. So that is where we restore it. In terms of traditional values and story, in terms of even food, for example, young people are exposed to more cosmological Western food rather than traditional food, and that disappear. But that's not even in Cambodian. It's become quite globally too in terms of that phenomenon. But the problem is how we going to make the interaction between the diasporas and the Cambodian together reflect Cambodian society. In other words, my own question is that how can we see Cambodian locally? By locally doesn't mean you're born Khmer. You cannot see Cambodian. You can see Cambodian locally, and you're born as a foreigner, you could not see Cambodian from a local perspective. Whether you stay outside, you cannot see Cambodian locally enough. So, to see Cambodian as it is happening, we need a different lens rather than one particular lens to see that one. And whether we need to examine whether all the publication from diaspora so far is seeing Cambodian from which lens. Mm-hmm. And from this, I saw the absence among all the scholarship on Cambodian without examining critically which lens these people look into Cambodia. And then this need to be put into the question whether I would like to say that they are helpful or not helpful. I was not able yet on that. I have no morals authority to judge on any particular scholarship of work if I'm not going to engage closely. But my general observation is that this is the absence. No one take a critical look into those publications enough, whether that reflect Cambodian land. And I myself, to a certain project, I noticed very well. For example, taking one publication by Cambodian diasporas and the foreign scholar, they invite some of my faculty members and my colleagues to write the book chapter with them. And when they publish, they even don't provide back the text for these people to review before the publication, and they're then putting there in order to make just this diverse group of researchers to fulfill the grant requirement, for example, but even without. And that is to the academic integrities and ethics is not supposed to be. And we catch up one or two cases on that. It doesn't mean generalization again. I just want to show that this is what's happening.
Thank you very much. Let me try to get to a couple more questions before our time is up. An interesting question here from Sanati Gang. From my point of view, she says, the increase in research in STEM is because the funding available for STEM research comes mainly from, and the principal investigators of this research comes mainly from Western rather than local sources. So is the STEM research driven by Western financial sources, Western influence, or is it local? Or is it a
Probably combinations. Okay, Cambodian money anyway. If you look at the institution at the moment in Cambodian, uh, uh, the only systematic intervention so far on the Cambodian higher education sector is the World Bank. It's the only actor in that one. And the project, if we examine from the last 10 years or so, is focused on STEM plus agriculture. Does that make sense? Okay, money is from outside, but we are the actor who borrow the money. It's no more grant. Cambodian graduated from the pure grant already. We're moving into the middle income countries where we're loaning and not pure grant anymore. But for pure grant, okay, they don't have influence, but now we are doing the loan. But by doing the loan, we must sign. And we must sign, so that means in some part we agree on that too. We agree on that because so far most of the training program is focused on STEM. So they send all these people to get a PhD in STEM. So when they're coming back, they work with these people again. So that is why in this sense I said that the STEM education in Cambodia, we need it. We need this kind of wing. So we have one wing, STEM wing. Whether you put it to right or left, that's fine. For society to move forward, we need this link of STEM. Whether you call it right or left, that's okay. But the other wing is weakening. Whether we can fly Cambodian fast from one wing, yeah, fast in terms of growing building infrastructures, but in terms of the humanities, in terms of values as a human, whether we're heading toward higher meaning of life, higher satisfaction of life, or whether we actually go into what I call it ontological insecurities.
So the
We are
question
physically there, good, existentially, we avoid that. But we are moving toward ontological insecurity, and where this abstract concept of metaphysics are not within the Cambodian development discourse.
So what will
And
drive
this is where humanity is important.
I completely agree with you. And then the question that comes to mind for me is, what will bring other people to that same conclusion, that without that other wing, the progress is only superficial. It's not complete. What will it take catastrophe? Will it take a serious problem to say that we also need the humanities and social sciences to develop holistically, to develop as a complete society?
For me to do this, I'm now moving away as talking much internally, but we could not grow without external support. Cambodians still need an external support in terms of intellectual development in social sciences, humanity. But we need a real intellectual dialogue. We need a real people who are devoted and seeing. I don't mean that if they're based in Cambodian is good already, more than good already. But even they stay outside, but they're faithful to the development project of the intellectual in Cambodia, rather than they interact with Cambodian just because of the salary paid by the donor is very high. If you engage within this project, you need to distinguish between just a job and of intellectual contribution. And then this is important. And so far, scholar on Cambodia also declining on the global level. I think Joyman, you agree with me on this. Is comparing in the late 1990s, early 2000. Well, and now even going to the big international conference panel on Cambodia is declining too. So that means Cambodia is not on the radar of this of this Southeast Asian study anymore. So developing an intellectual project need to go beyond the geopolitics, need to go beyond the commercialization of everything, but need to be faithful to the humanities projects. And this is where we can see. And then that's when we need to go out in order to get a mentorship on this issue and to work together. And we need to, in order to get that, unless Cambodians have a very genius intellectual within the country too. If you have very fake intellectual, you will go out to get a fake intellectual, the same thing, right? So for me, in this same, I might probably can call it two term, although you have a very, as Chira mentioned earlier, we have a very large number of PhD graduated or higher or master graduated, right? For me, we need to distinguish it clearly because in Cambodian, when you obtain that degree, you call yourself an intellectual. If you want to call yourself intellectual, I probably should put the adjective to that one. What Cambodian is needed is adverb and adjective. You are private intellectual or you are public intellectual. And that need to be carefully identify yourself. If you're public intellectual, your work is toward the public good, not the private good. If you're private intellectual with those degree, you work for your own benefit, you fall into the private good side. It doesn't wrong with your private good side, but don't mess up with these two terms. We need a proper public intellectual to talk about public good within the Cambodian context. By this, we can link to the public intellectual at the global level. Because all the intellectual at the global level were also talking about the global goods. And Cambodian is a part of that. We need a public intellectual to hang out there.
Interesting. Very good. Well, we didn't get to all the questions today, but we have run out of time. I think we could go another hour easily as we get deeper into this really compelling topic. I will ask to stop now. And thank you very much, Dr. Un, for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Sharing your time and your expertise with us today. It's been very valuable and very interesting. Thank you, everyone who attended today's webinar. We hope to see you again in 2025 as we think about the next 25 years of CKS and future projects. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.
សូមអរគុណទាំងអស់គ្នាបាទសូមជម្រាបលា
Have a